Let's get to it. Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth. Our meeting date is Monday, August 28th, 2023. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the clerk to note our starting time for the minutes as 7 p.m. A warm welcome is extended to councillors, staff, and delegations. We have quite a few who are associated, it would appear, with the delegations tonight, who will participate in this meeting regardless of whether being physically in attendance in the council chamber in Listowel or being connected through web technologies. We begin tonight's meeting with the playing of O Canada. Those in chambers as able are invited to stand. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after this meeting as an archived video. To those viewing this meeting via the YouTube channel, a warm welcome to you. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of the Council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances when deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behavior and or comments. Thank you. At this time, of course, I invite decorum over the course of the coming meeting. I take note of the absences of Councillor Andreessen and Councillor Blazek at this hour. Let us move to item 2.1 of our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. For the benefit of those unfamiliar with our council practices, provincial legislation requires councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item at the council table to declare this interest and to remove her or himself from discussions and voting on the item. In accordance with recommended protocol, at this time, I invite all councillors with a perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have declared already in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session, and if not done, to submit documentation to this effect in writing to the clerk. Councillors are further reminded that should a potential conflict arise during the meeting, they may so declare and act at any point in the meeting. Colleagues, I call on you for your declarations at this time. I'm the one with the declaration tonight. I will declare a potential pecuniary conflict of interest on item 7.2, which is pertaining to a request from United Way for various supports for its campaign kickoff. I am an employee of that organization at this time. As well, I will declare, therefore, on item 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw for same reasons. And Deputy Mayor Kellum is appreciatively going to offer service during those two items tonight. All participants are invited to speak when called upon by yours truly, serving as chair. Those participating remotely wishing to speak may draw the attention of the clerk through our conferencing technology's chat function, text chat. Remote participants are asked to generally maintain a mute state in the web conference until I recognize their right to the floor. If, when I do so, recognize I don't hear you because you are muted or having some technical difficulty, I will advise and send some aid. Let us now focus on the people's business. I invite those in the chamber to silence and put away their phones, and I invite decorum. Regarding item 2.2 of our agenda, I'm going to change cameras here. I have a motion before me for the adoption of the agenda for tonight's meeting that reads as follows. The agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Rothwell, thank you, and Deputy Mayor Kellum will be our seconder on this one. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. We appear to have a technical slowdown. There we go. And that is carried. Thank you. Let's move forward then to item 3 on our agenda, the so-called consent agenda. These items are placed on our agenda because they are believed to be non-contentious, yet grouping them and it allows us to move more quickly through them. However, any councillor wishing the opportunity to pull an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, and individual action may do so. There are 20 items on the consent agenda tonight, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Councillors, anything to extract here or any corrections to the minutes that you'd like noted? Councillor Rothwell, let me get your microphone. There we go.
Good evening, Mayor Todd, Councillor, and members of the public. I'd like to discuss item 3.20, the Minister of Municipal Affairs, Steve Clark, announcement.
Anyone else wishing to make a extraction here from the consent agenda? All right, I'm not seeing any at this point, but perhaps after Councillor Rothwell's had his kick at this one. Councillor Rothwell, I'll give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Mayor Kiesenberg. I was fortunate to attend the Association of Municipalities of Ontario conference last Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday in London, and it was a well-attended event. As a matter of fact, it was the largest ever AMO conference. And it was at that conference where the Premier announced this fund that Minister Clark has sent the letter attached to our agenda package. This is great news for municipalities, but it's only partially great news. And this was a question that came forward from AMO itself, as well as a number of municipalities that asked questions of Minister Clark on the floor at the Bear Pit. In particular, this AMO has expressed concern to the province regarding Bill 23, provisions specifically regarding development charges reductions for municipalities, estimated at being some $5 billion. You see there's a difference between $5 billion, which municipalities are saying, and then this fund, which is significantly less than that. It's over a 3-year period, which is being proposed. When questioned by municipalities and speakers, Minister Clark did say, in terms of the promise to make municipalities whole with respect to that difference of funding between development charges which are expected by municipalities under the Development Charges Act, that the province is awaiting the findings of the audit of 6 municipalities, which is ongoing as we speak, regarding their development charges funds. Now, they're all fairly large and very urban municipalities: the City of Toronto, Region of Peel, Caledon, Mississauga, and Newmarket. It's expected that, in fact, municipalities are going to, the audit will show what municipalities are saying, because they're required to provide that information every year to the public. So it's suspect it will not be a surprise when the audit comes out. But my main point is this, is that as outlined in this letter, it is a footnote that's earmarked in the fund. The Building Homes Faster Fund is 10% of that fund is earmarked for small and rural municipalities. So as I say, it's good news. It's just a matter that there's more details obviously to follow, and they're precious few, other than that this fund has been announced. So I just want to make sure that Council's aware and the public are aware that the fund, although it's great news, it's does not address the expressed concerns of this Council nor AMO with respect to the reductions are proposed under Bill 23, the Development Charges Act reductions. So I just want to make that clear. Thanks very much, Mayor Todd.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Put the microphone on. It usually works better that way. Indeed, I've taken note of that 10% item. And when you do the backwards math and divide it by the number of municipalities that may fall into this sort of smaller urban or suburban, like rural areas, it doesn't look like a lot of money. So I think there may yet be some advocacy for this and other councils as we get more details, but appreciate you giving us the update and what you observed at AMO with regards to the minister's statements and responses to questions. Anyone else have a consent item they'd like to pull before we consider the resolution? All right, then I have a resolution as follows, that consent items 3.1 to 3.20 be received for information, and the minutes of the August 14th, 2023 regular council meeting be adopted. Can I call for Councillor Anstett? Thank you. Councillor Duncan is our seconder for this one. Any discussion or debate on this? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Let's move forward then to agenda item number 4. We have a delegation tonight. We are joined by Ms. Kim McElroy, the Director of Social Services for the City of Stratford, and Chief Greg Skinner, hailing from the Stratford Police Services. They are co-chairs of Advisory Council, Partnership Council, something, of the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, and are here tonight to provide a spot of training to us and to give us a sense of what's happened and is happening in Perth County and North Perth related to the SWP. I think I notice Wendy with us too. Welcome, all three of you. Looks like Ms. McElroy is up first. You can introduce your colleagues as you go with your discretion. And let me change yeah, we need to turn that button on. I need to push a button here.
Thank you. And do I just use this to move this forward? Okay. Point it that way. Okay, so we're going to... Perfect. You've got it. Thank you through the worship. Good evening, and thank you for giving us some time on your busy agendas to provide you with an update on the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan for the municipalities of North Perth, West Perth, East Perth, Perth South, Stratford, and St. Mary's. As the Director of Social Services, I have the honor to currently co-chair the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, and I'm joined tonight by my fellow co-chair, Greg Skinner, the Chief of Police for the Stratford Police Services, as well Wendy Burrows, a member of the Partnership Council who represents North Perth's policing portfolio. We know that many of you have seen presentations on the plan itself, but we thought it would be beneficial to give you a high-level overview of why we have this plan, what priorities have been set by this plan, and where we are to date.
Good evening, everyone. We don't need to tell any of you that our communities are changing. There is more diversity in our population. There are more vulnerable people needing support. There are more frontline services required to respond to issues relating to mental health, addiction and homelessness, family violence, and self-harm. And these issues are more complex and require the development of strategies, programs, and services to help minimize risk and improve the overall feelings of well-being in our communities. Add into that the rising cost of policing, and everyone should realize that we cannot arrest our way out of this issue. We are the issues that we are facing, and we need a more collaborative, cooperative response model that engages all service providers. The Ontario government made the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan a top priority, and legislation required all municipalities in the province to have a Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan in place by July 2021. The municipalities in Perth County chose to come together and create a single plan as we collectively identified that our municipalities had more similarities of need rather than differences. The government heard the concerns of Ontarians about the need for safer communities, but also recognized that the responsibility for community safety was a shared responsibility. As you will see in the pictorial response to community safety, that community safety is multifaceted through social development, prevention, risk intervention, then lastly, incident response. I know we can all agree that incident response is the most costly ring in the diagram, and by bringing together multi-sectoral partners, breaking down silos, and finding more efficient ways of utilizing resources, we hope to be able to identify, evaluate, proactively address issues to mitigate our need for incident response.
Good evening, everyone. So currently we have leaders from approximately 20 organizations across the county, including CAOs for each of the 6 contributing municipalities, that come together monthly to talk about emerging issues, initiatives that need to be implemented, and challenges that need to be considered in identifying any gaps in our service delivery.
So as we progress through the roadmap, the leadership team adheres to our guiding principles. The first year might be best defined as a year of inquiry. We reviewed other existing provincial plans, looked at what community-based data and strategic plans that were already in place, started monthly communications to the community, bringing forth awareness of community safety and well-being topics, and engaged with a wide range of stakeholders living and working in the 6 partner municipalities to hear what the local needs were.
Community engagement and feedback played a significant role in the development of this plan, and here's what we heard. That for all residents to feel safe and physically, mentally, and spiritually healthy, their basic needs must be met. That safety and well-being means residents feel they belong, they are welcome, they are respected, and they are connected to others in the community. That there are vulnerable individuals and families in our communities who need additional help to enhance the quality of their lives. There are many excellent social, health and recreational leisure programs and services available to residents in and across the 6 partner municipalities, and that not all residents are able to access the services and supports they need, when they need them, where they need them.
Through consultations and a scan of our community inventory, we were able to identify that many strong community initiatives were already underway to address community safety and well-being plan priorities. Again, one of our key mandates was not to duplicate or recreate any existing services, but rather identifying what program or services are available and educating the public on what is already happening within our communities.
So the following slides are a reminder of what our priority areas, goals, and outcomes are for this plan. Number 1, systems planning and integration. People need to know what services are in our communities, how to access them, and what supports they provide, and what prevention strategies are in place. Number 2, adequate, affordable, and attainable housing. Housing is the number 1 priority we hear in our communities today, but it is an oversimplification of the issue to believe that housing alone is going to solve the complex needs of some in our communities. Number 3, affordable and accessible health, social, and recreational services. We are living longer, more active in retirement, and having just emerged from the pandemic, craving socialization. Healthcare and transportation are critical to supporting that lifestyle. Number 4, social inclusion. Canada is the fastest growing country in the G7. We recently surpassed the 40 million population mark and are projected to exceed 50 million in another 25 years. A large percentage of that increase in population will result from immigration. Promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion will be positive for all of Perth County.
We remain committed to these outcomes, and when reviewing new initiatives that come forward to the Partnership Council, we try to ensure that we check the following boxes. Does this increase coordination and collaboration between services? Does this improve access to services? Will this provide greater alignment on key safety and well-being issues? Will the outcome reduce demand on emergency or crisis services? And are we enhancing systems and planning?
So this slide represents some of the partnership successes we have to date, acknowledging that we still have work to do. We've utilized funding sources to create 3 positions to address the needs of the community by creating partnership between the multiple stakeholders. We have the paramedicine program with outreach, as well as the St. Mary's and North Perth Community Navigators with social services. We have formed a county-wide communications committee, a county-wide data analyst working group, and we have begun investigating ways that we can support youth in conjunction with the Builder Safer Communities initiative. We have brought forward the need for lived experience panels so that we have a holistic view of the community in safety well-being issues.
And we've relaunched the situation table with a focus on individuals with an acute elevated risk and in need of intensive multi-agency supports. And we've enhanced the Mobile Crisis Rapid Response Team to provide greater access to mental health supports in the community to individuals and families in crisis.
This slide shows that through collaboration and partnership, we are able to leverage investments for enhanced programming, provide stronger communications to educate the public on the work being done, as well as come up with evidence-based approaches so that we are able to measure our successes within programming, as well as identify where the needs are and identify ways to address these challenges.
So often I hear from our community that when it comes to the visible social issues in our communities, that nobody is doing anything and nobody cares. And I would suggest that the exact opposite is the reality. Each municipality in Perth County has passionate, committed professionals who are trying very hard to provide support to the most vulnerable members of our society. And it is very difficult work. It's work that preys on your compassion and can desensitize people to the suffering of others. I would suggest that most of us have experienced family members who have dealt with adversity relating to mental health, addiction, housing insecurity, or family conflict, and if you haven't yet, you most likely will in the coming years. These challenges are not going away, and it is going to take significant resources and expertise coming together to find innovative responses. Some will show promise, while others may miss the mark. But we won't know until we try. And I want Council to know that your people are trying very hard to make a positive difference in this community.
Your current representative is Amy Gangle, and I'd like to thank the work she's done forward. She's pushed initiatives forward. She's been collaborative on the team, and she needs to be recognized for the hard work that she has been doing with this project. Here are some of the successes of North Perth on how North Perth has responded to the community. And now we'll open the floor to any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the informative presentation. I think many of us are familiar, but we're glad to have the update and to see some of the progress that's being made in amongst the 6 municipalities that are involved in this particular plan. Colleagues, do you have any questions or comments, suggestions? They might not take suggestions as favorably as questions or comments at this point, I don't know. Anyone wishing to ask a question of while we have them here, we might as well, right? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and thank you for the presentation. Really appreciate that. I did have a chance to let the presenters know what my question was ahead of time, but for those that don't know, Perth County Council made a recommendation to refer the issue of automated school bus stop arm cameras, as well as the issue of the Administrative Monetary Penalty System, or AMPS, to deal with being able to help enforce speed and so on, speed limits. And I'm just wondering where either Chief Skinner or Kim could talk to us about where that is in the process. I believe it's fairly early in the process, but hopefully that we will move forward. And I will share through the council, as well as Chief Skinner and Kim, I did mention at the AMO conference, Association of Municipalities of Ontario staff are coming very close to dealing with the implementation of a program for automated monetary penalty systems and the school bus stop arm cameras. So that's if you can just let us know where things are.
Sure, thank you. Through the chair, I'll take a stab at it, and if Wendy or anybody else wants to chime in, by all means. This issue first came forward through the organization Let's Remember Adam. And if anyone on council has not accessed the Let's Remember Adam website, I strongly encourage you to do so, because there's a lot of information on a tragedy that happened a number of years ago in Eastern Ontario, and the parents of a young child who lost his life in a school bus related incident have really picked up the challenge and are looking to move the yardsticks forward with respect to safety around school buses and kids, and are increasing traffic on our highways. So there's been a lot of advocacy through that group, and there have been letters sent out to all of the municipalities and the police service boards and community policing advisory committees, asking them to support the government in putting cameras on the stop arms for school buses. Locally, there was a significant amount of media attention in relation to one particular family who's been experiencing vehicles passing their child's school bus when the school arms are down and the stop sign's out and the lights activated. And that prompted Perth County to take a look at what was available to them and to see what kind of progress they could make and to champion this issue locally. Annette Diamond from the county has done excellent work in contacting the various bus companies that are transporting children within Perth County, and she has gotten them together to start to tabulate the number of times that an incident where a child is put at risk by somebody passing a bus is happening. And she has also been looking at ways to get government funding in place to be able to support this initiative so that this doesn't fall solely on the bus companies. And there are a number of levels of government, particularly the provincial level of government, that has some skin in the game, if you will, with respect to this issue. The issue was referred to the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan leadership group, and we are having a presentation from Annette on the 28th of September at our meeting, and at that point I hope to have more information on what the go-forward plan looks like as far as decision-making and support for something locally to happen.
I think perhaps Councillor Rothwell has been somewhat modest in raising this issue, in that he has been a champion from this council and has sought the initial resolution from this council, which has now been endorsed by a goodly number of councils across Ontario, calling Ontario to get into the game and to fund both AMP and school bus cameras on arms. So, we continue to pay tribute to his work too in this, and appreciate that Perth County has done such wonderful work, as you said, through the report of Ms. Diamond. Colleagues, other questions or comments? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Thank you very much, Chief Skinner. Thanks for coming up to visit with us. Same to Kim. Wendy, always a pleasure to have you with us. We thank all of you and those of your colleagues who've joined us in the gallery tonight for participation purposes. Thank you. All right. Colleagues, that brings us to item 5 on our agenda, reports from key departments and staff. First, a report with recommended policy endorsement from the CAO's department. As item 5.1, our Kelly Fraser, HR lead for the municipality, is with us to present a report which calls for an updated policy on a respectful workplace. There has been an increase in unfortunate incidents where our staff have faced disrespectful behavior, and a need for the municipality to achieve greater clarity on what responses are appropriate, how staff can respond to these challenges to their safety. I'm going to allow Ms. Fraser to explain. Welcome, Ms. Fraser. Let me get the microphone here. There you go.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Hi, Council. I'm here tonight to discuss our respectful workplace policy. So North Perth does currently have an R-zone policy that outlines respectful behavior expectations for everyone and how to respond when inappropriate behavior does happen. That policy, however, mostly applies to the facilities and programs department. So unfortunately, staff have been experiencing more frequent incidents of inappropriate behavior from the public. So we did take that opportunity to review and update the R-zone policy, and we did change the policy title to the Respectful Workplace Policy. So ultimately, it aligns with our current work practices, outlines appropriate countermeasures, and applies to all departments across the municipality, so it's more all-encompassing. And it truly just establishes guidelines to ensure a positive, safe, and respectful environment for everyone. That's definitely the goal. So this has been reviewed with the senior leadership team to gather any valuable insight and feedback. And we also have a few things coming down the pipe with updated visual aids that will be posted at all municipal buildings, as well as providing more de-escalation tools for staff to build on our education and awareness training. So in summary, I am recommending that Council approves the Respectful Workplace Policy, and I am happy to answer any questions.
All right, thanks, Ms. Fraser. Colleagues, you've read this report. I trust you understand the rationale for why this has been brought forward. Do you have questions, comments, things you'd like to inject or delete from this before we consider it? Okay, I'm not seeing any indication of that. I will say that I have been made aware of this in the last few months and urged staff action. They have been very swift and prompt in bringing forward this revision, and I appreciate all the work that's happened. I did ask them to make it a priority because their safety, the safety of our staff is paramount to our organization, and there have been a number of toe-curling experiences that I've heard about that just were not acceptable and needed to be addressed. So I'm strongly in favor of this particular motion. Anyone else with comments? Councillor Anstead.
Thank you, Mark Eisenberg, through you, and thanks, Kelly, for your report on this policy. I'm just wondering if you can touch on for us how this is going to be rolled out so that the public's aware of it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to be doing a couple strategies, but social media will be our biggest outlet just to ensure that we get the updated visual aids. And then honestly speaking, we won't officially roll out the policy because just the public's likely not going to read the policy, but we will highlight the most important items and then point them in the direction of where the policy is on the website, and just ultimately outline what is appropriate and what isn't appropriate. So more details to come, and we will roll it out to council as well when we roll it out to employees.
Anyone further? Comments, questions? All right, I have a resolution then for our consideration as follows. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the respectful workplace policy included as attachment 1 dated August 28th, 2023. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Councillor Johnston will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate on this? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried unanimously. A strong endorsement for an important action. Thank you, Ms. Fraser. We're going to move down the road here to item 5.2, which is reports from the Strategic Initiatives Department. For item 5.2.1, North Perth Communications Coordinator Mackenzie Smith brings forward a summary of results from the recently implemented 2024 budget survey. I call on Ms. Smith, and I think this is her first report to the council, to give us an overview and answer any questions. Welcome.
Thank you, and good evening, Council. To prepare for the beginning of the 2024 budget process, North Perth citizens are invited to provide their input on their priorities and preferences for the annual budget through a budget survey available on the municipality's online engagement platform, Your Say North Perth. The public consultation was advertised through social media, municipality's website, local print and radio media. Paper copies of the survey were available at the North Perth Municipal Office in all 3 of our local library branches. The survey was live from July 5th to August 4th this year. There were 154 completed surveys received from the public. This is an increase from the 97 surveys completed last year as part of last year's budget process. This year, we included some new questions to better understand the residents that are participating in our budget survey process. 88 of our respondents this year had never completed the budget survey before. We thought this might be a good feedback to receive to see how we're reaching out to our public. We asked what type of property they owned or lived at in North Perth. 126 are urban residential, 23 rural residents, 11 farmland, and some commercial and industrial as well. When asked how long they have lived in North Perth, 33% have lived here for 30 plus years, 29% for 1 to 10 years, 18% for 10 to 20 years, and 17% for 20 to 30 years. 60% of our respondents were between the ages of 31 and 50 years of age, 20% were 51 to 64 years of age, 12% 65 to 75 years of age, and 6% 30 years and under. When asked what they would like to know more about when it comes to the municipal budget process, the top 3 were where their tax dollars are put towards, what services they receive for their tax dollars, and how their taxes are calculated. The top 3 methods residents like to use to receive information about the municipality's budget included the municipal website, Facebook, and local newspaper or radio. Recognizing that not everything is within the municipality's control, we asked what the top 5 concerns are at this time. As you can see that I marked on the slides, number 1, traffic issues. Number 2, healthcare recruitment. 3, our general infrastructure. 4, crime and criminal activity. And 5, social issues. Over the next 5 slides, we asked respondents to rate their level of satisfaction with the delivery of various services. I've made a list of the top concerns where more than 40 or more respondents rated their satisfaction level as unsatisfied. This list included bylaw enforcement, residential and industrial and development, roads and infrastructure, property taxes, and the cemetery. I'm going to quickly go through these other slides. We asked for any comments regarding their satisfaction. A few of the comments received included a green bin program, the traffic downtown core, affordable housing, sidewalk repair, and childcare, to name a few of the things that people feel would make their satisfaction levels better in North Perth. We asked the average residential property owner if they feel that they are receiving good value for their tax dollars. And this was for the municipal and county levies. As you can see, it was a fairly even split between disagree, neutral, and agree for our residential properties. We asked the average agricultural property owner if they feel they are also receiving good value for their tax dollars. It was even split for their municipal portion and weighed heavier towards a disagree for the county portion. Three areas where residents would like to see more tax dollars spent. As you can see here, are public works facilities and programs. We asked them to also select 3 areas where they'd like to see less tax dollars spent. As you can see here, it included our Stratford Perth Archives, Stratford Perth Museum, and the general government. We asked for any comments in regard to where residents would like to see more or less tax dollars spent. A few of these comments included the law enforcement, healthcare recruitment, our infrastructure. On the left side, you can see staffing, county, and climate change were on that side. We asked our respondents on a scale of 1 to 5 how well they understand how the municipality spends its tax dollars. As you can see, a majority of the respondents understand well, with an even split between not understanding or having a very well understanding of how their tax dollars are spent. When we asked how the municipality should spend cost savings, 52% said to put aside for future years or projects. Some services provided by the municipality charge a user fee, but typically run a deficit. When asked if they would support an increase in user fees, most respondents would support an increase in these user fees to reduce the deficit. There are limited ways to address the increased cost to pay for these services. The option supported the most was a 32%, was to support a combination of increase in property taxes and user fees. And with the limited ways to address increased costs to pay for services, again, the option supported the least was an increase in property taxes. We asked respondents how important it is that funding is set aside to replace infrastructure, and 83% feel that this isn't important. We asked how they feel the property taxes in North Perth are. 55% feel they are just right, and 43% feel they are too high. And we had a very low percentage that felt that they are too low. We asked our residents if they feel the municipality should invest in the provision of attainable and affordable housing, and if they'd be willing to have a tax increase or a reduction in other services to fund the provision of attainable and affordable housing. As you can see here, 49% did not support attainable and affordable housing. 31% supported this, and 20% did not provide an opinion. 79% did not support a tax increase or reduction in services, and 21% did. We asked how they would like to be involved in our 2024 budget process. Most would like to complete a survey, as they did already, watch a video, or attend a special budget public information session. Lastly, we asked what information they would like to receive from the municipality that is not currently being received. Many of the answers included electronic newsletters, information about new projects, a breakdown of where funds are being used, information on youth programming, affordable housing, and more communication about where their funds are going. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ms. Smith. Colleagues, questions, first comments? Deputy Mayor Kellum.
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor Kaysenberg, and thank you very much for your presentation. You did very well. It's interesting on slide 28. I always wondered what the community felt about affordable and attainable housing, and I guess we had the message. So what I'm saying is we have our work cut out as a council on how to achieve this goal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Anstead.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg. Just some brief comments. Thanks, Mackenzie, for your presentation. Very well done. And on behalf of Vice Chair Nordham, I just want to thank you and the rest of the staff for the work that you've done so far. And just to remind Council that our first budget meeting will be held on September 13th. It's a Wednesday. That's our visioning session. So if anyone's looking at your calendars, it's coming up quickly. So I would encourage you to bring any ideas, no matter how big or too small, bring those forward because we want to have a good, wholesome discussion at that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anstead. Anyone else with comments or questions at this point? A little bit of processing time until the 13th, so a good opportunity. Was that a hand up, Councillor Rothwell? Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Todd, and thanks, Mackenzie, for your presentation. I appreciate that. I think it's great that we have increased in the number of surveys. I lament that it's only 159. We're a community of closing in on 15,000 people, and with respect, we can only go on the basis of what people are telling us, but does that really reflect all of our community? I believe it does not. We are not alone in requesting people to have surveys within our community so we know where things are at. But one of the issues at the annual conference we did talk about is that people, if you really want to hear what people have to say, you have to spend time with them. And by spending time with them, of course, that takes our staff time or our council time to do so. And the analogy was about a cup of coffee. And if you sit down for a cup of coffee or tea or whatever it is, you're quite often going to get more than just stated comments within a survey. But within the confines of what we do, I think we have found out some things, as the Deputy Mayor pointed out, where people are viewing their priorities, and I think we can certainly respect that and certainly appreciate the work you and staff did to tabulate this. So I'm not poo-pooing it at all. It's just a matter that I hope that our community will come out even greater next year or the next survey that we have to let us know what they think. We cannot go to every coffee shop and hear what everybody has to say or kitchen tables and so on, but this at least gives us some barometer of what people are saying. So thanks very much. Appreciate that.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Yes, I think it's fairly clear that it's a small sample. Sometimes it's a self-selected sample because people have particular axe to grind or issues that they wish to have brought forward, and so you wind up with those voices becoming the loud ones in these kind of exercises. But there is some certainly directional information in there that is helpful. I was surprised that you even got some green on the "we need more taxes." That was amusing to me,
yes,
and I'll have to remember that. That makes me smile a little bit. All right. Any other questions or comments before we have a look at a resolution to receive this report? Okay, I have a report as follows. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the results of the 2024 budget survey as information. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Nordham, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Richardson. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. And I took note that Ms. Smith wasn't quite sure whether she should walk away from the podium or not. but well done. Thank you for your first report to council. That was nicely done. Okay, let's move on to item 5.3. And for this, the clerk has brought forward on behalf of the recently struck Governance Committee a report on recommended revisions to Council's procedure bylaw. The intent this evening is to review the proposed changes to this point, highlight any concerns with things that have been added, changed, or subtracted to facilitate a draft that gets finalized and seen at a near future council meeting. Ms. Klein, our clerk, has stepped up to the podium. Let me get the settings right for her and welcome her in the process. Ms. Klein, I think you're up.
Thank you. Through Mayor Kasenberg to members of council, I'm pleased to be here tonight to review our updated procedure bylaw and to highlight some of the changes that we're proposing. So I've put together a couple brief slides, thought it might be easier that way to review some of the changes with members, and I'll go over the process that we took to undertake the review and again highlight some of the more significant changes that were being proposed. So in terms of the review process, it was definitely a collaborative effort between staff, members of council, and the newly established Governance Review Committee. So some members around the Horseshoe might recall that last year in the spring, an online survey was sent around just to gather some higher level feedback on the effectiveness of the current bylaw. And then this feedback formed the basis for the review process that was undertaken by our Governance Review Committee. And our Governance Review Committee, just as some brief background information, it was recently established this past January. Its first meeting was held in April to establish and approve the work plan for the next couple years. And the first item on the work plan was the procedure bylaw. So the committee met at its May, June, and July meeting. And we really did a deep dive of the procedure bylaw, went through section by section to look at what's working, what's not working, talk about what we could potentially change. And I'd just like to thank all the committee members for going through that lengthy but important exercise. So ultimately, the goal of this procedure bylaw review is to improve our meeting management, our meeting efficiency, ensure transparency for members of the public, and to reflect our current operating procedures. So to reflect what we're actually doing during our council meetings. So at the July meeting of the Governance Review Committee, the committee passed a recommendation to bring forward the draft bylaw to council for approval. And so that's where we are tonight. And we're bringing the new draft bylaw forward in a two-step process, as the mayor mentioned. So tonight we're here to present some of the higher level changes, hoping to get any feedback from members of council, and then we'll bring back the final version of the bylaw to the September 18th meeting for final approval. So this will give staff the opportunity and some time to incorporate any further or final feedback received tonight. And if any members of the public as well want to submit comments, that will give them a couple weeks to do so as well. So in terms of just some general updates to the bylaw as a whole, we've cleaned up some of the grammar and the formatting, moved towards more gender neutral language. There were a lot of provisions within the bylaw that were duplicated within multiple sections, so we tried to remove as many duplications as much as possible. We also removed a lot of references to our boards and committees for now. We do actually have a separate board and committee procedure bylaw, which should be followed for the time being. So the one we're looking at tonight will just apply to council specifically. We do have it on our work plan to review our boards and committees as a whole within 2024. And so at that time, we'll look at the effectiveness of having two separate bylaws or whether we should just move towards one single bylaw for council as well as our boards and committees. So now we'll go through just some of our more significant changes that are being proposed. So probably the most significant change, I would say, is the reduction in the number of meetings. So currently, council meets the first 3 Mondays of every month, as you're aware. with the exception of July and August where we meet twice. We're proposing that we move towards 2 meetings every month for the entire year, and that would be the first and third Monday of each month. There has been a lot of recent discussion about the number of meetings that North Perth Council has specifically. Some data was brought forward when we did our council remuneration review late last year, how North Perth has a significantly higher number of regular council meetings compared to our comparator municipalities. So with our current meeting schedule, we meet 34 times a year, and the average when you look at our comparators is 21.5. So that is significantly higher. So I think, we're proposing that we reduce the number of meetings to 2 per month. That's not saying we're going to reduce the number of work that council's, or the amount of work that council's doing, but it'll just be more effective, and also from a staff side of things, it'll be good for work-life balance, reduce the level of overtime, those kinds of things. So when we do reduce the number of meetings, we want to make sure that we're not going to end up having 4, 5, 6 hour meetings twice a month. We don't want to reduce the number of meetings but increase the meeting length. So we are proposing various efficiencies throughout both the draft bylaw as well as through some internal processes that staff are working on. So we'll get through some of those efficiencies in the bylaw as we go through the proposed changes. But some internal efficiencies that staff are working on is we've recently started using an agenda forecasting tool with senior management, so we can have a better snapshot of reports that are going to council over the next 3 to 6 months, and that will give us the time to move around reports and adjust as necessary if we see that one agenda is significantly heavier than another. We're also working on a delegation of authority bylaw, so we can look at whether there are items we currently bring to council but we could delegate to staff. And we also would like to make better use of our consent agenda. So if staff is bringing forward a report to council for information only, rather than having staff, present that report, it doesn't necessarily need council's approval. Council is just receiving it for information. Then we could just include that on the consent agenda. So that's the first change that I wanted to go over. Some other changes, we've updated wording regarding the inaugural council meeting to reflect changes in the Municipal Elections Act. So the term of council changed from starting on December 1st to November 15th. So we had to update the wording for that. We updated the order of business for the inaugural meeting just to reflect how we've handled the past couple inaugural meetings and to provide some more flexibility in case we want to add additional proceedings, have guest speakers, or anything like that. For budget meetings, how the bylaw is currently worded is budget meetings are held as regular council meetings. We've revised that so they're held as special council meetings, and the agenda is prepared in consultation with the budget chair and finance staff. Under the canceling of meetings and inclement weather section, we've added in a clause that would allow council to switch to a fully remote meeting in the event of severe inclement weather, and there is a urgent item on the agenda that needs council's immediate consideration. So this would require some staff consultation, including IT staff, to ensure feasibility depending on the circumstance. It may or may not be possible depending on the nature of the extreme weather or the inclement weather, if all roads are closed. But we wanted to include that just in case we need that flexibility and there was a matter that really needed council's urgent attention. The next change that I wanted to go over is the order of business for regular meetings. So I have what we've currently, or what's currently worded in the bylaw on the left-hand side of the screen there, and then what we're proposing on the right-hand side. It mainly just reflects current practice. Just adding in sections like the land acknowledgement statement, O Canada. We've added in a section for council recognitions for when teams come to be presented with medals. Under council report, under reports, for staff reports, we are proposing that the clerk has the flexibility to adjust the order of staff reports, just to accommodate timing and operational needs, and so that, you know, staff from the from planning or development and protective services don't always have to wait until the end of the meeting. They could go first, and then staff who are always at the meetings till the very end, like corporate services or the CAO's office, could go last. And then we're also proposing that if a department doesn't have any reports going, we just won't list them on the agenda. Under delegations, we're proposing a new deadline for delegations wishing to speak to an item on the agenda. The current delegation deadline is 4:30 p.m. on the Tuesday before the agenda goes out. So we've got some feedback from the public, specifically more so related to planning reports, you know, consultants who want to come speak. They think they want to come speak to a planning item, but they haven't seen the staff report yet or staff's recommendations, so they're not sure. So if we add in this additional deadline, it will give them the opportunity to review the agenda and review the staff report prior to deciding whether they want to register to delegate. So we are proposing that if a delegate wishes to speak to an item on the agenda, they have until noon the day of the meeting to fill out the delegation request form. However, we are proposing to still keep the deadline of 4:30 p.m. on the Tuesday before the agenda goes out for any delegations wishing to speak to new items that aren't on the agenda. We have also added some provisions on how to handle delegation requests that we anticipate to be or to result in unreasonable or offensive conduct or that are outside of council's jurisdiction. And we've also added in a provision that allows us to request speaking notes from delegations if we're seeking further clarification on what their delegation is going to be about. We do request the topic on the delegation request form, as well as the action that's being sought from council. But sometimes people don't provide very much detail, and if we'd like more information on what they're going to be speaking about, this gives us the ability to request their speaking notes. Under the bylaws section, so this is another way that we're proposing to make our meetings hopefully more efficient. We're proposing that all bylaws are passed in a single motion, with the exception of the confirmatory bylaw and then any bylaws that require provisional adoption, so bylaws passed under the Drainage Act. And we are going to remove, or proposing to remove the requirement for bylaws to have 3 readings. It's not a requirement under the Municipal Act. It's kind of an antiquated exercise to pass bylaws with 3 readings, so we're proposing to get rid of that. So just an example of how we would pass multiple bylaws in a single motion is just on the screen there. Bylaw numbers 94-2023, 97-2023, and 99-2023 are hereby passed. A member of council does have the ability to request that a bylaw be voted on separately if they'd like, you know, a vote of council to stand out on one particular bylaw, or if they do have, or they've declared a pecuniary interest on a matter that has a related bylaw, we can separate that bylaw out. And again, the confirmatory bylaw would still be a separate bylaw passed at the very end of the meeting. We've just clarified the deadline for council members to provide a notice of motion. So we do require that a notice of motion be provided in writing to the clerk. So we've stipulated a deadline of 4:30 p.m. on Wednesday before the meeting, so we can include it on the agenda. We've also provided a clause regarding council report requests. So currently staff or council members have the ability to request a report from staff, but until that report comes back to council, there's no real status update on it at the moment. So what we're proposing is that a status update is provided to council on a quarterly basis as part of the consent agenda. I know it's kind of small there, but that's just an example of how the status update could look. The status of whether the report is still pending or whether it's been complete, when the report was requested, what the request was, what department is taking the lead on that report, and then when it's expected back to come to council. We've also clarified adjournment. So currently the bylaw is pretty confusing when it comes to adjournment. Some sections say that council will adjourn at 11 p.m. Others, there's another section that says council will adjourn after 6 hours. So we've removed any duplications and just added in a single section that council will adjourn after it's still in session after 4 hours. We did the 4 hours rather than specifying a time like 11 o'clock, just in case council, has a special council meeting that starts at 5, then council would adjourn at 9, rather than going from 5 to 11. And adjournment time can still be extended by a majority vote of council. The last change I just wanted to highlight is about electronic participation. So we've just incorporated previous council direction that members of council will attend all meetings in person unless, as mentioned earlier, it's at the discretion of the chair during and if there's inclement weather and we're moving to a fully remote meeting, or council passes a special resolution if a member of council is out of the country and still wants to participate in a meeting, they can, if council passes a resolution permitting that. And we just clarified that staff, delegations, consultants, and other attendees can attend electronically. So I just have the recommendation from the report there on the screen. So we're just seeking any further feedback tonight, and then we will bring back a final copy of the bylaw to the September 18th meeting for final approval. And I'll pass it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Clerk Klein. I think a remarkable amount of work has been done so far. I've had the privilege of working on such a committee at the county in the last term, and I know how complex it can get and how much time for discussion can be invoked. So to those who've served in that capacity so far, thank you, and don't be discouraged. Carry on, keep it going, find ways to create more efficient council experiences. I'm going to open up the floor to comments. There could be quite a few, I don't know. So let's start with Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Kaysenberg, can't believe the amount of work that's probably gone into this. It's been a monumental task. One thing I am a little concerned about, on one hand, I like the idea of going to 2 meetings a month. However, pardon me, we've all seen agendas week after week after week, and I'm willing to go along with it to say that your efficiencies will tighten that up again, but there's been 3 meetings in a month where they've been 10:30, 11 o'clock. And I think some efficiencies can bring them down, and extending it by an hour, my personal opinion, I'm willing to give it a go, but I'd much rather have 3 meetings that go till 9 o'clock. Because we also have to take into consideration staff. Not everyone lives 2 blocks away like I do. That they do have driving that we don't necessarily want. Yeah, we only have 2 meetings a month, but it's 11:30 when we're done. Because a lot of us do have, including staff, more so the staff do have to work the following day. So that's just my 2 cents on that. Is there a possibility to have, I don't even know if it needs to be in the procedural bylaw, at the call of the chair, like if we happen to have a busy month, yes, some months are busier than others, that at the call of the chair, we can add in the 3rd meeting, that if it's necessary. Like we've all seen meetings where you can have 4 or 5 public meetings. But that can gobble up time, and then you get other things. And development needs to come forward in a timely manner, that it doesn't necessarily need to wait until 2 weeks later for another council meeting. But that's just what I'm thinking. I'm not saying immediately jump to 3, but at least have the provision, like to saying that if the call of the chair decides we're having a very, very busy month, that we will need a third meeting council. My 2 cents.
I'll say just a brief word, right? Like meetings that go to 11 are hard for the mayor because the mayor has to pay attention to every nuance, everything that's going on in the room, manage the AV, et cetera. And so certainly the number of meetings that go to 11 o'clock, we need to avoid meetings that do that, in my opinion. Unless you want to split up the duties of chair in a meeting so that there's sort of, I don't know, a marathon of a different and a turnstile of different councillors leading the meeting at various points. Because I turn into a pumpkin around 10 o'clock. I appreciate that comment. I think a significant piece of this, and I'm going to go to staff and to members of the committee if they wish, is that staff has committed to doing more agenda planning. And that should create greater pacing of things wherein we know what's coming down the pipe. And there will be some times where we will have to rely on the clerk, and perhaps the clerk consults the mayor, which has happened. But we have to rely on the clerk to say, this meeting's going to be too long. I can tell just by looking at the things that have been queued up, and we make decisions to push some things back, right? So I think that's part of the solution set here. Clerk Klein, I know that Councillor Johnston is dying to contribute to this question, so go ahead, Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Mayor Todd, and thank you, Councillor Richardson. We talked about this at length at the committee. I think half of that second meeting was, we talked like, and it's something we really want to get to. But we said that to staff. We don't want to be here passing motions at 5 to 11 saying, we still got 3 things to go. Because that sucks, unfortunately. I can tell you, my alarm clock goes off at 5:10 every morning. I got cows to look after. And when I don't get home till 11:20, it makes for short nights. And none of us are getting any younger. So, we did debate this, but I think with all the changes that are coming and the streamlining that and I'll give credit to staff, Lindsay and Sarah kept coming back with ideas on streamlining, and Chris was at every meeting, and, I think it will work. I'm with you that I'm certain it will work, but I think there is the discretion built into this that if we're finding that next May we need a third meeting, I think, it's built in there that the chair can, at his discretion, call one, and I hope we don't need it, but I'm pretty sure that the streamlining that's coming down the pipe, even just the bylaw one, I think that's going to save about 10 to 15 minutes at some council meetings.
For sure.
Yeah, and it'll save the mayor about 1,000 words a night going through all those bylaws. You know what I mean? So I think with the streamlining that's coming, I think we're going to be pretty close to staying under. I think we set out a goal of 2-hour council meetings. 2 to 2.5 is our most effective meetings. Anything past 9:30, I think we lose our effectiveness, even with a break in the middle. So I'm hoping we can keep them to 2 to 2.5 hours. So, but we do appreciate your comments. We did spend a fair bit of time debating this as well, and the clerk, had some great ideas about streamlining. So we've looked at other municipalities that are bigger and meet for an hour. Their lengthy meetings are 1:30 twice a month. But then, we've looked at other municipalities that don't have the drainage and don't have the development that we do. So we'll see where it goes. I'm more than willing to give it a go. Thank you for indulging me.
All right, Clerk Klein, did you want to jump back in on this one too?
Sure, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just echo what Councillor Johnson said. We talked about it a long time, and it's, I think what I'll just say is that it's going to be a work in progress. It's going to be a transition. I don't know if I mentioned this, but we're proposing the 2 meetings a month start in 2024. And at the end of the year, we can, do a review and look at our meetings, look at the times, and decide whether we want to continue on with 2 meetings in 2025 or go back to 3. As Councillor Johnson mentioned, there is the ability for the chair to call a special meeting if needed. We did talk about, potentially adding in a third placeholder meeting every month, but, I think we kind of want to just give the 2 meetings a month a go and see what happens. So again, it's going to be a transition. We're trying to do a lot of little things, or not little things, but things on the staff side of things to hopefully make this a success. But yeah, we definitely hear the concerns, and we're going to try to do our best to make it work.
Okay, thank you for that. Who's next? Okay, I have, go ahead. Yep.
Thanks, Mayor Todd. Thanks very much, Lindsay, for your report and for the work of the Governance Committee. Appreciate that. The one issue in terms of the bylaws, I certainly understand why we would want to put them together. I'm just going to suggest that when we have planning public meetings or any public meeting where we have members of the public here, that perhaps we could have a resolution of council in terms of what the intention of council is. It's not passing the bylaw, but so that Joe and Jane public aren't going to be sitting here to the end of our meeting to find out as to whether or not this council adopted or did not adopt a bylaw based on public input. So that's my only suggestion, that we need to be mindful of our members of the public as well, so that they feel comfortable that they've been heard, they know the decision or the intent of where we're going with their decision, and that's incumbent on council. If we've given a resolution to say that we intend on adopting the bylaw and we don't, well, I'm sure our phone will be ringing tomorrow. So that's my only suggestion. Thanks very much.
Thanks. Anyone else? I have a number of little points that I'd like to make, if I might, and then one that is perhaps a little more substantial. Certainly, there's some places where it needs another read, because your efforts to sort of squash committees, it's still, some of it's in there, right? So we need to have a look carefully at some of those references, because you've said that there is an additional committee board procedure bylaw that's different than this one. And so I can point out a few of those spots if you like. I think under 6C, there's a half-hour provision for beating quorum for meetings. And I'm going to suggest that we consider that an earlier choice is possible at the discretion of the head of council if knowledge is held that a quorum cannot be achieved. So there certainly have been meetings recently where about 8 minutes after we had texted everybody who was missing and we realized that we weren't going to hit quorum, and we could call it at that point. And so to sit in our chairs till 7:30, those who are here, doesn't seem like a good choice. So there's that little piece. I'm a little bit curious about clarifying the flow. I'm not sure I'm clear yet on the notice of motion provisions. Does a councillor have to bring the text of the notice of motion for the Wednesday before the meeting, so that text winds up, and yet it's just a notice with the intent for the vote the following meeting? So we need to sort of clarify that workflow. Personally, I think that it's appropriate for any councillor to bring forward a notice of motion one meeting and have that considered the next one, giving notice at the meeting and not having to give the pre-notice for the agenda of the meeting. But that's a matter to be perhaps considered. There is a provision in the proposed bylaw about the timing of reports that are requested from council. And right now it says it's at the discretion of the senior management team, and it's quite definitive. It's very clear that that's the intent. That may not always be wise. There may be occasions where council will say, we want this report in 2 weeks' time. And I don't think that we should be quite as definitive if council decides to give direction on that matter. Finally, in 22D, there's a typo that might be important, actually. It says, after the motion is, it should say is as opposed to if, finally put to a vote, for the sake of keeping that straightforward. But I certainly agree with the general provision. The broader issue that I have, one that I've had from day one, actually, is that we do have committees that do work on our behalf. And of course, they create minutes, which get onto the consent agenda. But there are times when committees want an action. They recommend to council that council do something. And I think that our current process of placing that in staff reports is not the wisest process, because committees are doing the work and they should be able to take credit and stand up for the proposals, the recommendations that they wish to make to council. So I actually believe that the agenda should have an additional section called committee referrals to council or something like that, that allows a committee to push back to council things that they believe should be actioned by council. And I know that, as I said, there's a history of doing that in staff reports. Staff would still be responsible for sort of taking the committee information and the recommendation and bringing it forward in that section. But I believe that our citizens want to know that our committees are being heard well, and that they have some ability to reach council directly beyond their minutes. So I'm encouraging some thought to be given to that subject, that perhaps we add an additional line under reports. So there's sort of reports from departments and key staff, and then there's reports from committee and the recommendations that come from committee meetings that council needs to endorse or consider are in that section. I think those are my comments. It's a well done piece of work, actually. Thank you to the committee again for all of this work. Councillor Johnston.
So, just a comment from the committee. Big thank you to staff. They came prepared. They had the ideas. We debated them. But a big thank you to the staff for the hours that they put into this, Mr. Mayor. I think it was tremendous. Also, another thank you to the vice chair. Not proudly, but the vice chair chaired as many meetings as the chair did. So thank you to Councillor Nordum for stepping in on several meetings when the chair was either late or in the field. So, but a really good start to this committee. I'm really happy with the work that's been done so far. So.
And I think we can feel your enthusiasm, so thank you for that. I thank you for you and Councillor Nordum coordinating your schedules too. It sounds like you've figured out when one of you is in the field versus the other. That sounds like it's a good deal, and good for you. Any other questions or comments on this? So if I can ask about the next step, is the committee to have another meeting between now and the 18th, which I believe is the date proposed, and they'll consider some of the comments that have been raised tonight?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, the committee meets again on September 11th, so we can do some background work on the staff side of things before the next committee meeting, and then we can discuss any further proposed changes at that meeting.
Great, thank you. All right, so I have a resolution as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth directs staff to incorporate any feedback received at the August 28th, 2023 council meeting into the draft procedure bylaw, and that staff be directed to bring forward a final version of the procedure bylaw to the September 18th, 2023 council meeting for council's approval. Moved, I assume, by Councillor Johnston and seconded by Councillor Nordum. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Clerk Klein. A very useful report. All right, let's move forward then. We have no reports tonight from the Programs Department. As item 5.4, they have been busy this summer, and we appreciate all their efforts in our community. We have 3 reports to consider from the Facilities Department. I don't think Mr. Newell is with us. CAO Snell is going to take those. Okay, thank you. As item 5.5.1, our manager of facilities brings to the table a report on the recent bidding process for the acquisition of new playground design and equipment in the Listowel Memorial Park. An award of contract to Park and Play Design Co. is recommended, and CAO Snell is going to be the voice for this report on behalf of Mr. Newell. CAO Snell, welcome.
Good evening, Council, and Mr. Newell sends his regrets. I unfortunately had a urgent matter come up that he had to attend to. So I offered to pinch hit for him tonight, so hopefully I can answer any questions that Council may have. The first report is an RFP regarding the play structure for Memorial Park. As you can see, 6 RFPs were reviewed by the submission committee, and the recommendation is that the RFP be awarded to the Park and Play Design Company for a total of $297,629.61, which is within the budget. All of the proposals were AODA compliant, and certainly the Park and Play Design Company has an Alberta address, but they also have staff and facilities in Ontario.
Okay, thank you, CAO Snell. Questions or first comments on this one? Councillor Rothwell?
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Chris, for the report. And that last comment, I think, is an important one, because the question I had is that if something was going to go wrong, if they're based out of Alberta, how fast is that going to get resolved? So I'm glad to hear that they have a Ontario presence, and on that basis, I'm in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Anyone else with questions or comments? Did they have to submit a design concept for this, CAO Snell?
Yeah, so that was why it was done by RFP. We weren't really stuck on necessarily one design concept. So each of the applicants could submit their own design concepts, considering many of the objectives we were looking for was to be inclusive and compliant with all the AODA legislation.
Okay. Did we have any parents on that committee, just out of sheer curiosity?
No, it was all done by staff.
Okay, but any of those staff have kids?
Yes, I would say the staff.
Thank you. Okay, just want to make sure that this is parent tested, right? That's my intent. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, I have a resolution for our consideration as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth awards request for proposal NP-042-23P, Listowel Memorial Park Play Structure Replacement to Park and Play Design Co. Limited for a total of $297,692.61, excluding HST. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Anstett. Any discussion or debate? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks, Mayor Todd. Just one question through to you, Chris. Given that this is one of our most substantial play structures, as we heard Councillor Blazek say how busy it is used, when is the expected date, and how long will it take for installation? So how long it will be out of service? Do we have an idea?
I will have that confirmed by the manager of facilities, but I believe the expected date is next year.
Next year.
Yeah, but I will have Jeff confirm that with all members of council.
Thank you.
All right. Where are we at with this? We need a vote. We have a mover and a second. We do. All right. Let's have that vote. And that is carried. I think that was a getting old Todd moment, actually. But anyway, let's move forward here. CAO Snell is staying in place so that he can address item 5.5.2. In this one, Council is provided with an update on an intended project to refresh tennis court surfaces. And I think what we found is that it was pretty expensive. So, CAO Snell, you want to talk about strategy, please?
So this is a bit of an unusual request. As mentioned, we did do a tender for the tennis court resurfacing for both the Listowel and Atwood communities. The bids received were significantly over budget, and we would like to seek pre-approval to have these projects re-tendered this fall with an appropriate budget to be completed early as possible in the spring of 2024, so that the tennis courts are available for the full 2024 tennis court season or tennis season.
Okay, thank you for that. Colleagues, any questions or first comments on this? not the first time we've seen this kind of rollover. Councillor Duncan?
Thanks. Through the chair. So I'm assuming that the one confirmed quote kind of led staff to believe this project is going to cost double what we originally budgeted?
Yes, approximately. We're hoping that we can actually attract more bidders through the second tender. We have reached out to a number of companies that are doing the work. I think part of the problem, and that's why we want to tender it early, I think part of the problem is they're lined up for work really early. So hopefully by getting it out this fall, we can line the work up and get more bidders for 2024.
Okay, thanks.
So there is potentially some hope that it might not be that full amount, but we'll have to wait to see what a competitive process does. All right, any other questions or comments on this one? Okay, so we have a resolution as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the 2024 pre-budget request for tennis court resurfacing in the amount of $130,000. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Nordham, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Duncan. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. And CAO Snell still in place for item 5.5.3. Here, council is asked to approve a paving contract associated with the Steve Kerr Memorial Complex. Please take it away, CAO Snell.
So this report before council is usually dealt with at the staff level, but because our procurement bylaw requires requests for quotations that come in over budget need to be brought forward to council. So this project was budgeted at $20,000. The low compliant bid was $24,167.93, which is a 21% over budget. However, we feel it was within the reasonable guidelines for this type of project, and we're just recommending to council that we take the low bidder at the low bid amount of $24,167.93 to Armstrong Paving.
Okay, thank you, CAO Snell. Colleagues, questions or first comments on this one? Seeing none, I have a resolution here as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth awards request for quote NP-049-23Q Steve Kerr Memorial Complex Maintenance Shed Parking Lot Paving to Armstrong Paving and Materials Group Limited, St. Mary's, Ontario, in the amount of $24,167.93. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Nordham. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you, CAO Snell, for pitch hitting tonight. Let's turn to item 5.6, reports from Manager of Environmental Services. We don't have a report from that department this evening. That means we can move to item 5.7, reports from the Manager of Operations. And he's brought a lot of stuff to the table tonight. So here he is. Let's talk about item 5.71. This one invites council to award a tender for road work on Fairlane Road to Horst Excavating of Moncton. Tell us about that one, Mr. Couch.
Mayor Kasenberg, members of council, thank you. This was proposed in the capital program earlier this year and last year for connection to new commercial developments that are on Fairlane. It's a short length of installation. Horst is a little bidder, reviewed by the engineer and recommended for the work to start likely in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, questions or first comments from colleagues? I am not seeing any, so I have a resolution as follows. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth awards tender NP-036-23T Fairlane Road servicing to Horst Excavating Inc., Moncton, Ontario, in the amount of $135,650, excluding HST. Can I call for a mover? Deputy Mayor Kellum, seconded by Councillor Anstett. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. 5.72 invites council to proceed with the request for the improvement of the Soden municipal drain under Section 78 of the Drainage Act and to appoint an engineer. Mr. Couch, looks like you're doing that one.
Yes, thank you. The drainage superintendent is online, but he's having some audio difficulties. This is the movement of a small section of drain that's beside a lane that is a winter hazard. It's on a single property. It's considered a minor improvement and has been requested by that property owner. The recommendations in accordance with Section 78 of the Drainage Act proceed with the request for the minor improvement for the Sodom municipal drain, and then secondly, that we appoint Spriet Associates to investigate the design and prepare a report. For doing so, they're well underway.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from council at this point? Let's consider the resolution then as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, in accordance with Section 78.5 of the Drainage Act, proceeds with the request for minor improvement of the Soden municipal drain, and further that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth appoints Spriet Associates to investigate, design, and prepare a report for the proposed new crossing on the Soden municipal drain. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Johnston, seconded by Councillor Rothwell. Thank you. Discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote.
I'm in favor. I voted, but it's.
Okay, so Councillor Anstett manually records a favorable vote, and with that, that item is carried. Thank you. All right, next up, another tender. This one, competitive public process for the supply of 2 half-ton pickup trucks. The award is proposed to Finch Auto Group of London. Mr. Couch, you're up again.
Thank you. The award for the 2 pickups is being recommended for Finch Auto Group. They were the lower bid of the 3 eligible bids at $113,000. The 1 unit is for the Environmental Services Department. It was part of the capital program. It's for the replacement of the older minivan. It'll be a more functional vehicle for them, and they're hoping to have that in place for winter conditions. The second, an additional vehicle for the Public Works Department. Also, in the capital program, it was actually listed, it's noted at a $53,000 amount for a half-ton. It was listed at $96,000. There's more efficiency in simply having a people-moving additional unit in the Public Works yards. Right now we have 4 units, basically 1 at each shop. And with the 8 operators, we find that we're simply not able to have a supervisor pickup, mainly because we're shuttling people back and forth or using the 1-ton. By using a new pickup, it's going to be more efficient on fuel. It's going to allow the supervisor to have a dedicated vehicle. The other good opportunity for this truck is to allow the listable patroller to have a dedicated vehicle that they can use for early morning 2 to 3 a.m. patrols in the wintertime. So I hope I've explained it well. But again, the efficiencies here are, I'll use tree cutting as an example. We'll have a unit on sign work in the rural in one area, another unit on tree cutting in the rural, and then a listable unit. It only leaves an additional truck for 2 supervisors. So much of the summer, the new supervisor has been either using a 1-ton or participating with events or staying in the office. It's become a bit of a problem, especially with the tree removal activities that we have, and that additional unit will help to service different works that we do on any given day.
Okay. Thank you, colleagues. Questions or first comments on this one? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so resolution as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth awards request for tender NP-047-23T supply and delivery of 2 new 4x4 4-door crew cab half-ton pickup trucks. That's a lot of words. To Finch Auto Group, London, Ontario, in the amount of $113,375, excluding HST. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Nordum. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. And let's move to item 5.74. This one is award a tender after competitive public procurement process for the supply of some winter plowing and road sanding services to Hannah and Hamilton of Listowel in the amount of $303,000 over a 3-year term. This is a single bidder outcome. Mr. Couch, comments?
Really, the only comment here is we've used H&H for this service for many years. It's an extension of the same work. They've done an excellent job for the municipality. Costs reflect about a 7.65% increase over the 3 years. We can choose to renew those years along with them as we go. The recommendation from staff is to move forward and award the work for the next 3 years to H&H as per the listing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Couch. Colleagues, any questions here? Did we just not receive any other bids? Like, is that what happened?
Yes, correct. Historically, we've had one opportunity where there was a second bidder and they were not able to fulfill the activities even though they were low. That's the only thing I've seen in 7 years. So we're grateful to have a local contractor do the work.
Okay, thank you. CAO Snell wants to weigh in. Let me, you're number 13, right?
So we're certainly seeing this emerging issue across all the municipal sector where private contractors are finding it difficult to obtain the insurance required to do work on public property. And it's not just that it's a matter of being expensive, sometimes they can't even get the insurance in the first place. So not only are we seeing it in North Perth, but we're seeing it across the sector in not just winter operations, but even summer operations. So it's something that hopefully gets corrected, but if it continues to go down the stream, we'll have very few third-party operators looking to work for the municipalities.
Okay, thank you, CAO Snell. Councillor Rothwell, I saw your hand up earlier. Did CAO Snell satisfy your question or comment? All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? I have a resolution here for our consideration that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth awards request for tender NP 044-23T winter plowing, salting, and sanding to Hannah and Hamilton Construction, Listowel, Ontario, in the amount of $303,000, excluding HST. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Rothwell, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Duncan. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried, and that one will be awarded and contracted. Thank you, Mr. Couch, keeping us busy. But I think this might be the time for a health break, actually. Let's take 5 minutes. It is 8:43. Let's come back at 8:50 for the sake of argument at this point. I think everyone's had their bio break and they've been comparing notes about students who are going off to college or university. I heard some of that in the recess. So to those parents, I remember the days, my sympathies. Carry on, carry on. All right, let's look at reports from item 5.8 from Development and Protective Services Department. For item 5.8.1, Council has received a report with recommendations from the Manager of Protective and Development Services, Chief Jenny Pape, pertaining to the introduction of an additional charge related to site plan improvements. Historically, it turns out when requests for amendments came forward from developers, no clarity around the cost of the additional work had really been available. And so here we are with a proposition to close that gap, consistent with, in some ways, the report we heard about making sure that fees are appropriate to the users. So, Chief Pape, let's have that story.
Thanks, Mayor Todd.
You might need to turn that on.
Thanks, Mayor Todd. Good evening, Council. From time to time, a site plan agreement requires amendment. North Perth's rates and fees bylaw does not currently speak to the fees for such an amendment. While there are costs associated with the staff review, legal fees, and registration of documents, charging a full site plan agreement fee may be perceived as excessive. To recoup the cost of site plan agreement amendment, a new fee equal to half of the site plan agreement fee is recommended by staff for Council's consideration.
All right, thank you, Chief Pape. Colleagues, questions or first comments on this matter? All right, we do this by bylaw, of course. So I have an enablement resolution as follows, that bylaw number 95-2023, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 160-2015, the fees and licenses bylaw Schedule E, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk, and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call for a mover on that? Councillor Richardson, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Nordum. Any discussion, debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried.
Thank you.
That was easy.
It was.
All right, let's move on to item 5.8.2. We get into some planning matters now. With this one, council is invited to exempt from part lot control lands designated as residential in the Elma Ward in the so-called Dummage subdivision that is evolving rapidly in Atwood. The usual purpose of such an action is to allow adjustment of lot lines between residential parcels. County of Perth Planner Jerica Gilbert is with us to present an overview of this action. Welcome, Planner Gilbert.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council. And while we gave this a file number for exemption from part lot control bylaw, I believe this is the first time this council has seen an application like this. It's actually a request to extend the deadline of an existing exemption from part lot control bylaw. So as you may remember, since we just recently had a few exemption from part lot control requests, the bylaws always have an expiration date. And the reason for that is that part lot control is a very effective tool that the municipality has, and we generally only like to lift it for a certain period of time so that the developer can do what they need to do. And then once everything's done, then the bylaw expires and part lot control comes back on the property. So this is a familiar subdivision. This is the Delmich subdivision in the community of Atwood, just off Monument Road. So the kind of problem child here, so the bylaw spoke to the entire of blocks 50, 45, and 51. The blocks you can see outlined in red here. The townhouses that are going on the site are not quite finished. So this is a problem for the developer because the exemption from part lot control bylaw was only permitted for 1 year, and it will expire in October. For those of us that sometimes know about land affairs in rural areas, what happens when you have a bunch of properties that aren't considered within a plan of subdivision, and they're all in the same property ownership, which these will be still likely be in October because the build isn't finished and they can't convey them to the new owners. Without this extension, those lots will all merge again and they'll have to come back and apply for exemption from part lot control. So in light of that, they're being proactive and approaching council, which they are permitted to do, and asking that council consider extending the bylaw so that they don't need to go through that process again. Staff have reviewed their request. We do believe it's reasonable. And we are suggesting that the original bylaw, which was bylaw 127-2022, be extended for an additional year, especially considering that exemption from part lot control bylaws these days, we give them 2 years right out of the gate. So I'm happy to answer any questions. And that's my recommendation for this one, is that we grant the extension. But thank you.
All right. Thank you, Planner Gilbert. Questions or first comments from council, if any? All right. Not seeing any. We have 2 resolutions to get through for this one. First, that North Perth Council approves the request for an extension of bylaw number 127-2022, file 5-2023, submitted by Van Harten Surveying on behalf of Reed's Heritage Homes for lands described as Plan 44M84, blocks 45, 50, and 51, Elma Ward, Municipality of North Perth. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Rothwell, thank you, and Deputy Mayor Kellum will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried, and now the bylaw, that bylaw number 97-2023, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 127-2022, be introduced, read, considered read for second and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Councillor Anstett will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote.
Favor.
Okay, Councillor Anstett registers a manual yes on the question, and that is carried. Thank you. Next up then, we have another file here. This is 5.8.2, I believe, and this is to look at exemption from part lot control lands designated as residential in the Elma Ward at 270 and 272 Queen Street in Atwood, the Lone Oak Properties. Planner Gilbert, again, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. It seems to be the season for exemption from part lot control applications. So this one is taking place in the opposite end of the Atwood community, and surrounding land uses are residential in nature. It's always easier to review these when the lot is a square. It does meet all the requirements of the R4 zone in the North Perth bylaw. It's going to establish 2 parts of a semi-detached dwelling. Planning staff are recommending approval of this one for a 2-year period, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have on this application. And sorry, I am being a little more brief tonight just because you've had a few of these the past few meetings, so thank you.
Thank you. We don't mind brevity. Colleagues, questions or first comments on this one? Okay, not seeing any, so let's consider the 2 resolutions here. The first is that North Perth Council approves a request for exemption from part lot control, file 6-2023, submitted by Lone Oak Properties for lands described as Lot 25, Plan 565 RP 44R 5822, Part 1, 270 and 272 Queen Street, Elma Ward, Municipality of North Perth, and forward the bylaw to the County of Perth for approval. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Nordum, thank you. Councillor Duncan will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. And Deputy Mayor Kellum asked me in the interim if this is your last meeting with us. Is this your last meeting with us?
Yes.
Come to the podium.
Yes, Mayor and Deputy Mayor. This is my last meeting, which is a bit ironic because these files and property owners were one of the first ones that I did with North Perth a year or so ago, especially the Delmich subdivision. I just can't seem to escape it till I know and tell the developers that I'm moving 6 hours away to. That's not the case, but in all seriousness, I have deeply appreciated working with North Perth staff and North Perth Council. You've treated me exceedingly well, and I deeply appreciate everything that I've learned, and I'm really looking forward to what the communities of Listowel, Atwood, Moncton continue to become, because staff are working hard on a number of projects, and our communities are going to be great. So I'm very sad to leave, and thank you. Yes.
We didn't get to say our part yet, so we'll do that. You get to hear from us. So I think one of the most remarkable things about Planner Gilbert is that there is incredible conciseness and clarity about her reports, their reports. And that has made planning and land development seem pretty easy, which is kind of scary to me. I know that Councillor Rothwell is not afraid by that, but it has simplified our understanding of a lot of things, and so we're very appreciative for your service, and we wish you much success in your next moves. I think a round of applause might even be warranted. And now Alan and I will sing. No, I will. We'll save you from that ignominious end. All right, we do have one more resolution on this file. The clerks are giving me the eye here. As follows, that bylaw number 98-2023, being a bylaw to exempt from part lot control lot 25, plan 565, RP 44R, 5822, part 1, 270 and 272 Queen Street, be introduced, read, and considered read at first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Moved by Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Richardson. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have the vote. And that is carried. Again, much appreciation for the service that you've rendered to this council and to Perth County. All right, next up is item 6 on our agenda, council reports. Councillors, are there any reports you'd like to request of staff or of our committees at this time? Okay, I'm not seeing anything. Let's move forward then to correspondence. We have 2 items of correspondence that warrant our review and or action tonight. As item 7.1, we have received a request for waiver of fees for use of some picnic tables, including pickup and delivery by the municipality for a few September dates for the Listowel Farm and Maker Market. I have a resolution to that effect that we'll read and see where it goes. As follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the request from Shelley Bus to waive the fees for the use of 3 picnic tables, including delivery and pickup, at the Listowel Farm and Maker Market on September 2nd, September 16th, and September 30th. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Duncan. Any discussion, debate, questions here? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. I will now step out of the chair and turn to Deputy Mayor Kellum to proceed with the next item of business on which I earlier declared a conflict. I should set up your microphone just in case. Thanks.
As noted, please note that Mayor Todd is declared peculiar interest on 7.2. So Council, as item 7.2, we've received a request from United Way Perth Huron, which is planning its 2023 campaign kickoff event in Main Street parking lot near Warden Up to Grove and adjacent to the side doors of Warden Up to Grove building using appropriate indication tools such as pylons and blockades, and for the provision as needed of picnic tables, including pickup and delivery by the municipality. We have a resolution to enable this request that reads as follows. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the request from United Way Perth Huron as follows. Number 1, use of municipal parking lot between TD Bank and Warden Up to Grove on September 15th, 2023. Number 2, pylons and wooden blockade signage to block off 16 parking spots near the building doors of Warden Up to Grove. And 3, picnic tables to be used eating outdoors at this event. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Rothwell, second by Councillor Richardson. Questions or comments? Let's have that vote. I am in favor. And that is carried.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Kellum, for pinch hitting there. All right. Let's turn then to consideration of bylaws that have been recommended to us for action. We have a few tonight. As item 8.1, Council is asked to authorize the promulgation of a lease agreement with Perth County relating to the hosting of Perth County Paramedic Services in Moncton at the municipality's fire station. I have a bylaw enablement resolution to that end as follows, that bylaw number 94-2023, being a bylaw to authorize the signing of a lease agreement with the County of Perth, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Moved by Councillor Anstett, seconded by Councillor Duncan. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. As item 8.2, Council is asked to address the Turnbull municipal drain. Let me get my notes here. As follows, we have a resolution to finalize things here, that bylaw number 96-2023 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 60-2022, the Turnbull municipal drain, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Nordum, thank you. Councillor Rothwell, I see a hand pseudo in the air, so I'm calling that a second. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote.
I'm in favor.
Okay, Councillor Anstett records a in favor vote. And with that, that is carried. Thank you. Let's look next at item 8.3. This is with regards to the Hilpert municipal drain and third reading. As follows, that bylaw number 53-2023, being a bylaw to provide for drainage works Hilpert municipal drain, be read a third time and be finally passed, and the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Means the bill is coming. Moved by Deputy Mayor Kellum, seconded by Councillor Richardson. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Next up is the Mar Hill drain. This also is a third reading as follows, that bylaw number 54-2023, being a bylaw to provide for drainage works Mar Hill municipal drain, be read a third time and be finally passed, said bylaw, be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Rothwell, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Nordum. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Third reading again for the Macintosh drain as follows, that bylaw number 55-2023, being a bylaw to provide for drainage works Macintosh municipal drain, be read a third time and be finally passed, and that said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Johnston, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Anstead. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. And finally, one more of these third readings. We're obviously getting through drains. That bylaw number 71-2023, being a bylaw to provide for drainage works at the Mueller Municipal Drain, be read a third time and be finally passed. And the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call for a mover on that one? Councillor Duncan, thank you. And seconded by Councillor Richardson. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this? Let's have the vote. And that is carried. And I think before this term of council ends, we should create the drain dance, and all of us will learn the parts, and we'll know a lot of the parts, I suspect, because of our work on all these drains. All right. Thank you. Let's go to item 9 on our agenda. Are there any councillors wishing leave to give notice of motion this evening? Seeing none, let's move to item 10 on our agenda. This is the one about announcements that would be a benefit for our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time. And certainly, if we still have anyone connected to our call that wishes to participate, they could. But I'm happy to consider any announcements that people would like to make, including from staff. I took note of a championship. I believe the U11 girls from Alma won a significant championship in baseball. So that was kind of exciting. And perhaps as we investigate the opportunities, that may present an opportunity for them to come and see us. All right. Thank you, colleagues. That brings us to item 11. We have 2 items to be considered in a closed session meeting of council. I'm going to read that resolution that enables our ability to go there as follows: that council proceed in camera at 9:15 p.m. to address matters pertaining to the following. First, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, regarding Municipality of North Perth Corporate Services Department, and second, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board regarding Plan 44M10, Park Block 39, RP 44R 3986, PT Park 1, Nelson Avenue South. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Nordum. Any discussion or debate on this? Let's have that vote. And that is carried. All right, we are going to recess from open council, turn our attention to a closed council meeting. That means a few AV changes, etc. So everyone who has not been invited to be in the next meeting of council should exit the chamber at this point. We should close the doors. We have our Super Simon, our IT guy here to help us with this transition, and we're going to move forward. Okay, where do you want us to be? I better put the microphone on just to prove that we're getting audio.
Splash is still up.
Okay.
Video feed up. I better put the microphone on.
There we go. All right, over to me. Thank you. That brings us to item 12 on our agenda. I can confirm that Council did discuss matters identified in our enabling resolution for our closed session meeting this evening. Staff was given some direction on one item, and certainly the essence of that at this point will remain confidential for the reasons that we stipulated in our enabling resolution. Council, as a mandated good practice, acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm its actions, and I need to step out of the chair for that. Deputy Mayor Kellum will ably handle this piece. Let me get his microphone. Yes.
And the confirmatory bylaw reads as follows, that the bylaw number 99-2023, being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, be introduced read, considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and the Clerk and sealed with the seal of the Corporation. Moved by Councillor Richardson, second by Councillor Anstead. Let's have that vote. And that is carried.
All right, thanks for the support from Deputy Mayor Kellum twice in the meeting. Appreciate that. Let us move forward then to adjournment. Our favorite time of the meeting, I suppose. We've done what we were supposed to do tonight. We talked about the things we were supposed to, and so a motion to adjourn is in order. As follows, the council meeting adjourns at 9:31 p.m. To meet again for a special council meeting on Monday, September 11th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Just for councillors' awareness, this is going to be our strategic plan night, September 11th. The next full regular council meeting is September 18th, and there's a budget meeting in there that Councillor Ansted's taken care of. So just so you see the lay of the land, September gets a little bit busier for us. All right, I need a mover to adjourn here. Thank you, Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Duncan. Thank you. It's not debatable, so let's have that vote. All right, Councillor Anstett records a manual vote in favor, and with that, we have a carried motion to adjourn. Council, we are back together on the 11th for strategic planning, on the 18th for our next regular council meeting, and on the 13th for budget committee meeting chaired by Councillor Anstett. Good night, folks.